Hi, my friend. It's Pat Sloan here. We have a couple things today. One is day 5 of the Tantalizing Tabletoppers book tour. So seeing all my friends and what they have done. So we're going to visit 2 people today. Also, I want to show you how to prepare the single binding that I do. I had a couple questions. Kathy, who's one of our ambassadors, asked, how do you keep from burning your fingers? So I'm like, let me just do a little demo because I've been doing it for so long. I just, I don't use anything special, just my fingers. So anyways, what I'll do is sort of walk you through prepping that fabric, how I get it ready to put on the quilt for single binding. And what is single binding, I'll show you that. And we have a little mail call, and there might be something else, depends on how much time it takes. So first, though, I have to tell you, I got a new lotion, and it just has such a summery feel to it. Look at that. It feels like summer watermelons, fireworks. Yeah. Anybody else get the pink watermelon blast? Sounds like a popsicle, doesn't it? Okay, so that's my new hand lotion for here in the studio. Let's get talking about our friends today that we're going to meet. Kristen Esser is amazing. I just love what she does, and she has a podcast. So that is really fun. She is so soothing to listen to. She has lots of really interesting information. Sometimes she interviews people. So her podcast can be heard at her website. And she also runs it on YouTube. There's no visuals with it. It just plays so you listen to it. It's a show, like a radio show, a podcast. But also Kristen does sew-alongs. She shares lots of really beautiful projects. And I love that she talks about tea. That she really, really loves tea. And so sprinkled throughout are things like that she loves to talk about. So you will really want to go. She did some really great sew-alongs also for hand piecing. So if you really want to get into handwork, you might want to pick up doing one of her projects and sewing along with her to have a community to do that with. It's really a lot of fun. Okay, then we're going to also go and visit Melissa Morrison of the, what's her website again? Oh, Polka Dot Chair, the Polka Dot Chair. And you remember, Melissa, when we did the spooky sampler, that was hers, and I had her on the show here, and she came and chatted a little bit about the spooky sampler. We had so much fun doing that project. At least that was last summer, I think. I think it was. But Melissa also is a fabric designer, and she writes loads of great patterns to go with that. But she also does things besides just quilts. She does lots of bags. She does sort of some decorating of clothing. That's what I like. So she uses her, die cut machines and stuff, and then shows you how to put just some simple things onto clothing. She's dyed shoes. She's decorated shoes. Just really fun, creative things. I always feel very inspired after going and seeing what Melissa has been working on, checking out her projects. And then you've seen a couple photos here as they've gone by with she and her husband, who they like to go to events and go in style. So they wear something really interesting, unique, and they often coordinate like that. And I just think it's great. And so it's fun to have a partner to do that with. So you're going to go out and visit the 2 of them. So let me show you a few quilts from the book. Because remember yesterday I got them all in, so I'll show some today and then the last grouping tomorrow. So this first one is called Family Gathering, because that's always where we have fun, right? Family gatherings are a great place to visit and socialize. And this is the same quilt that Carolina Asmussen did with the stripes. So isn't that cool? So I know you guys like to see the backing. This is this fabric I have had for, I had like a bolt of it. It was when I got it from the manufacturer I was working with, and I have used it over and over and over again. I think I'm almost done with it now. I was like, did I still have enough for this? That's crazy. So this one is scrappy. So I used a lot of different fabrics, and so that's really a fun way to approach a repeat block is when you're doing a repeat block, if you want it to be just a little bit more interesting, then use different backgrounds, you know, fabrics to go along with the sort of main image of the block. Okay, so a couple others, and I tell you, I got smart and wrote the final name. Yesterday when I was saying I didn't always know the name of the pattern, you know, one, because the quilts have been gone so long, but the other is that I often will pick a name, but it changes once the book is coming together, once photography is done, once I sort of write the story that goes with it, then sometimes the name changes. And I don't have the quilts, so I don't go back and write it on there then, but I went and updated it on the few that had changed. So this one did not change, actually. This was, I named it Tea Time, and it was kept Tea Time for the book. Ah, look at that. So this fabric was so beautiful. I just had to work with it. Look at that fabric. Isn't that gorgeous? And the backing is from the fabric line. It just feels like a tea time, doesn't it? And it's got great quilting that Cindy did on there. Look at that quilting. Just awesome. Okay, the next one I have is the French Bistro, because that's totally the place to get a coffee. Totally. That in the Italians, yeah. So here is the table runner. Ta-da! So this one is, you'll see, is people have made it. It turns out just so different depending on the fabrics that you use. These have that. I love that turquoise with a little bit of green in there, and then pop those little sort of butterflies here, and that's a solid navy so that they really will show up, because that's really what you want to do on here. Because if you're using like strips that have a lot of pattern, you need something solid or near solid, and so you don't lose the image of those little butterflies. Okay, and the last one is game night. Does your family have game night? See, now you can make this, and it is, ta-da, I think it's one of my favorites from the book. I was sort of channeling Parcheesi boards, you know, that kind of a thing, doing the design. So fun. And I have a red floral on the back of this one. So I think it's a fun one to put out when you have game night. So like, it's always the signal, right? So you get certain things out, that'll be game night. Okay, I want to do the mail call. We'll do that now, and then we'll take a look at the how to prep binding, the way I do it, just how to get the binding ready. So the first thing I have is this awesome card from Barb in Missouri. Look at that. These are cards from Laundry Basket Quilts. So Adita does really pretty photography, so she must have done some cards up. So Barb sent me a great big group of selvages. Look at the houses on that one. That is so darling. And then like there's cute trees instead of dots. I think this one's kind of funny because it must be an older fabric. I haven't seen that style of selvage, like with really big letters like that. And then here's another one. It's got fun sort of, you know, graffiti-like, you know, lettering. Very cool. Okay, and the other one is a neat gift. And I have to show you, it's in a box, and I'll have to show you that. This is from Georgia in South Dakota, and she made me a card. Isn't that beautiful? Love all the notes that you send. And now here is, I've already looked, so we're going to, let me just, trying to move that. Okay. I don't know that it stayed how I had it when I opened it. It came in this box. There. So she sent along, they're like the Scrabble names for me and Greg. There's Greg, and she spelled it right. Got 2 G's for Greg, or 3 G's total, 2 on the end. That's his given name. And then, okay, the other one dumped out. So then she sent me a third one with another handful of items. And I think it's spelled space. At least that's the one version I got with space. So how fun is that in this really cute box? So I think that's awesome, Georgia. Thank you so much. Mwah. That's right, friend. That one's from Georgia, right? Yes. Good. Check the name. All right, we're going to go on the other side of the table and the ironing board and prep some binding. So binding prep. Binding for your quilt. There are two sort of regular bindings that I think they're just the regular standard bindings, nothing fancy. One would be where you take this strip of fabric, you cut a strip of fabric, some of you cut 2, 2 1/4, 2 1/2, something like that, and then you fold it in half. So, you know, that is regular kind of binding that a lot of you do. Well, somewhere along the way, way back when I first started, that I can't even remember where this came from, whether it was actually my first instructor that told me about it, which it could have been when I was, you know, or somebody in my guild, because I joined a guild right away, the Quilt Guild locally. But I have been doing this practically since day one, is single binding. So basically I am also cutting a strip, but instead of folding it in half like this, I will just fold under 1/4 of an inch. And it basically eliminates one layer of fabric on your binding. That's the goal of it, is to reduce that. Why would you need to do that? Well, it saves a little bit of fabric. It makes it a little bit easier to turn corners. You get your, you know, on your binding. And other than that, no, there's really no other reason, that it just reduces the amount of fabric that's used. Which is kind of helpful if you're sort of short of binding fabric. You could, you know, do the math, and you can. I've actually squeezed this down a little bit even smaller, like in size. If I'm really short on the binding, you know, I can figure out exactly how much I'm going to use, and I can get binding out of a smaller piece of fabric and use it up. So I thought I'd just walk through this prep stage just so that you can see how I did this. This is for the old school block of the month, which I'll show you then. I have the binding on its first stage. I did that last night. So it has to be wrapped to the front and sewn down by machine, which I have a full tutorial for. I've linked it in the description box and at my website today. So if you've never looked at that, you can go see it, because I do the binding by machine. Okay, so what do we have to do? This is my process. So, you know, if you have a different way, that's fabulous. I am just going to show you my way. So first of all, let me just show you the difference of the two up close. Let's take a look at the two of them side by side. So this is the what I would call double. I call it double binding. It might be what you think of as standard binding. You're doing a strip, 2 1/4, 2 1/2, and then folding it over. And you have one raw edge here, and then one folded edge on the other side. So I do what I call a single binding. So it's, you cut the strip, I cut it 1 1/2, and then I just eyeball 1/4 inch. And you're very good at eyeballing 1/4 inch. You don't need to measure it or do all that other stuff. And this then, this raw edge here is what gets attached to the quilt, and the folded over edge will then eventually be stitched down. And I will show you on this quilt. There we go. I'll show you on this quilt then. All right, so to prep this, to get it going, to create loads of binding, I am going to cut a 1 1/2 inch strip, and usually off of the width of fabric. You know, this is just a chunk. This is all I have left from this fabric from this project. So my demo will be, I'm going to use all the same fabric. So cut a 1 1/2 inch strip, and then I cut as many as I need to go all around the quilt. I do sew them right sides together to attach on the diagonal. So I would, you know, put them right sides together before I press. This would all be flat. I wouldn't have pressed anything yet. And I would sew across that diagonal, and then, you know, just like you would do, rather than on the end. It always seems to lay nicer rather than doing a seam across the end. Although I do that sometimes, especially if I'm really short of the fabric, because this will, you know, take up less space. But I don't know that I've got a seam on here, this piece. No, there's no seam on there, but there would be a seam. Okay, now I want to press this under 1/4 of an inch, so let's take a look. So I've got the wool pressing mat, I've got my Aliso iron, and I think you can see it good from this side. So you're on the opposite side from me. I'm right-handed, and what I'm doing is just taking and starting the fold a little bit ahead, not like right at the corner, just starting it a little bit ahead, and then my fingers are further out. So like I don't have my finger right next to the iron, because one of the things is you'll burn your finger, you'll melt your nail polish. That's just something we don't want to do. So I keep my finger, what is that, about an inch, well maybe 2 inches away, and I'm folding it out away and then just following along with the iron. And so I can do the whole, I do every, the whole, if it's a big queen size quilt, I will just keep feeding this along. And then when I'm done, I will go ahead and wrap it all to store it like this. Just sort of wrap it around my hand so that it doesn't, get all crazy tangled. And now here it is on the first part of my quilt. I'm attaching it to the back. This is the back of the quilt. Here's the front with the quilt blocks. So I'm attaching it to the back. And then when I'm done, you can see here's like I can just roll it to the front, which you can go look at that tutorial. This is just, showing you this part. So you can roll it to the front, and then I actually, manipulate the corner, and I use a blanket stitch to stitch it down. I'll unfold it here, so it's flat again, so you can see that 1/4 inch that we sewed under. See that 1/4 inch that we sewed under? So that is how I prep the single binding. And a reminder before we go to subscribe to my YouTube channel, because if you're a subscriber, I can look at the list, and every 5,000 until I hit 105,000, I will be giving away a quilt. This is the first one I'm giving away, and we're getting close. I think there's under 500 people needed, and then this will go to a new home, and that home could be yours. And this is, believe it or not, a tabletopper size. Wouldn't that be cool if a bunch of you signed up and I got to give it away tomorrow? That'd be a lot of you signing up, but there are a lot of you that have not subscribed, so it's possible. Tell your quilt friends. Okay, so today you're going to go visit Kristen, and you're going to go visit Melissa, and you're going to have a lot of fun. And if you liked my little demo of how to prep single binding, please let me know in the comments, and there's also the link there and at my website today so that you can go see the full tutorial. I love you. Mwah. Thank you for being here in the Sloan Zone. I will see you online.